Plato. Greeks may have also absorbed Magian tenets through their extensive contacts with the Egyptians. Herodotus recounted that, during the reign of Cambyses in Egypt, a great many Greeks visited that country for one reason or another, some, as was to be expected, for trade, some to serve in the army, others, no doubt, out of mere curiosity, to see what they could see. 37, as Diodorus explained.
But now that we have examined these matters, we must enumerate what Greeks, who have won fame for their wisdom and learning, visited Egypt in ancient times in order to become acquainted with its customs and learning.
For the priests of Egypt recount from the records of their sacred books that they were visited in early times by Orpheus, Musaeus, Melampus, and Daedalus, also by the poet Homer and Lycurgus of Sparta, later by Solon of Athens and the philosopher Plato. And that there came also Pythagoras of Samos and the mathematician Eudoxus, as well as Democritus of Abdera and Enophides of Chios. As evidence for the visits of all these men they point in some cases to their statues and in others to places or buildings which bear their names, and they offer proofs from the branch of learning which each one of these men pursued, arguing that all the things for which they were admired among the Greeks were borrowed from Egypt. 38. Though Pythagoras was born on the island of Samos, his father was a Phoenician from Tyre. 39. Pythagoras had traveled to Egypt, at which point, according to Apuleius in his Apology, he was captured by Cambyses during his invasion of the country and taken back to Babylon along with other prisoners. In Babylon, maintains Porphyry, Pythagoras was taught by Zaratas, a disciple of Zoroaster, and initiated into the highest esoteric mysteries of the Zoroastrians. 40. According to Iamblichus, Pythagoras traveled to Phoenicia, where he conversed with the prophets who were descendants of Moses the physiologist, and with many others, as well as with the local hierophants. 41. The ancient Jewish historian Flavius Josephus 37 c. 100 also believed in Pythagoras' affinity for Jewish ideas. Now it is plain that he did not only know our doctrines, but was in very great measure a follower and admirer of them. For it is very truly affirmed of this Pythagoras, that he took a great many of the laws of the Jews into his own philosophy. 42. According to F. M. Cornford, whether or not we accept the hypothesis of direct influence from Persia on the Ionian Greeks in the 6th century, any student of Orphic and Pythagorean thought cannot fail to see that the similarities between it and Persian religion are so close as to warrant our regarding them as expressions of the same view of life, and using the one system to interpret the other. 43, as Bertrand Russell outlined. From Pythagoras, Orphic elements entered into the philosophy of Plato, and from Plato into most later philosophy that was in any degree religious. 44.
According to Momigliano, it was Plato who made Persian wisdom thoroughly fashionable, though the exact place of Plato in the story is ambiguous and paradoxical. 45. In antiquity, the reputation of Plato's purported connection with the Magi was widespread.
Plato's only actual mention of Zoroaster, though, is found in the Alcibiades, which may or may not have been his work, in which Socrates states that the Babylonians, who educate their children in the Magian lore of Zoroaster, son of Ahura Mazda, are superior to those in Athens. 46. Yet, according to Diogenes Laertius, Plato's teacher Socrates met a magus who made a number of predictions, including that of Socrates' death. Plato himself is said to have spent several years in Egypt, after which he had intended to visit the Magi, but was prevented due to the wars with Persia. 47. Nevertheless, in a manuscript found in the ruins of Herculaneum, which was destroyed along with Pompeii in the eruption of Vesuvius, Plato is said to have met with a Chaldean shortly before his death. Finally, the Epicurean Calotes mocked Plato's purported borrowings from Zoroaster, which indicates that this connection was a well-established opinion around 282–50 BC.
48.
The man considered responsible for introducing Magian tenets to Plato was one of his friends, an Ionian mathematician and astronomer, Eudoxus of Cnidus, who seems to have acted as head of the academy during Plato's absence. Eudoxus is said to have traveled to Babylon and Egypt, studying at Heliopolis, where he learned the priestly wisdom and astronomy. According to Pliny, Eudoxus wished magic to be recognized as the most noble and useful of the schools of philosophy. 49. As well, according to Aristobulus, a 3rd century BC Jewish philosopher, Plato also had access to translations of Jewish texts, and therefore, it is evident that Plato imitated our legislation and that he had investigated thoroughly each of the elements in it. For he was very learned, as was Pythagoras, who transferred many of our doctrines and integrated them into his own beliefs. 50. Numenius of Apamea, of the late 2nd century AD, remarked, "What is Plato, but Moses speaking in Attic Greek?" 51. The great exposition of Magian thought in the Greek language is the Timaeus, where Plato treated the common Magian themes of time, triads, pantheism, astrology, and the 4 elements. The purpose of life, according to the Timaeus, is to study the heavens. Most common to the tales or motifs borrowed from the Magi were those dealing with visits to the underworld. Plato provides his description of the ideal state in the Republic, proposing a stratified society based on 3 classes, including guardians, also known as philosopher kings, followed by a warrior class and then producers below them. To explain how guardians are to be instructed, Plato presents the myth of which holds many parallels with occult and later Kabbalistic doctrines. The story consists of a vision of the afterlife recounted by the son of Arminius, Armenian, who died in a war but returned to life to act as a messenger from the other world. He described a heaven and hell where souls are either rewarded or punished, and a cosmic vision of the universe, controlled by the spindle of necessity and her daughters, the 3 fates, where the siren's song echoed the harmony of the 7 spheres. Calotes, a philosopher of the 3rd century BC, accused Plato of plagiarism, maintaining that he substituted Ur's name for that of Zoroaster.
The myth's similarity with Chaldean ideas is confirmed in that in it Plato presents a list of colors corresponding to each of the planets which conforms precisely with the correspondence offered in Babylonian texts.
52 Clement of Alexandria and Proclus quote from a work entitled On Nature, attributed to Zoroaster, in which he is equated with 53 Quoting the opening of the work, Clement mentions Zoroaster, then, writes, "These things I wrote, I Zoroaster, the son of Armenius, a Pamphylian by birth, having died in battle, and been in Hades, I learned them of the gods." This Zoroaster, Plato says, having been placed on the funeral pyre, rose again to life in 12 days.
He alludes perchance to the resurrection, or perchance to the fact that the path for souls to ascension lies through the 12 signs of the zodiac, and he himself says, that the descending pathway to birth is the same.
In the same way we are to understand the 12 labors of Hercules, after which the soul obtains release from this entire world. 54. Finally, in the Timaeus and the Critias, Plato set out the myth of Atlantis. Plato records the conversations Socrates had with Timaeus, Hermocrates and Critias. Responding to a request from Socrates for a historical example of an ideal state, Critias describes an account of Atlantis, inherited from his grandfather, written by the Athenian poet and lawgiver Solon, who lived between 638 and 558 BC. This story was narrated to him while visiting Egypt, by a priest who interpreted for him the hieroglyphic script on a pillar in the Temple of Neith.
He was told,
"There once existed beyond the strait you call the Pillars of Hercules an island, larger than Asia and Libya together. From where it was still possible at that time to sail to another island and from there to the continent beyond them which enclosed the sea named after it. On this island of Atlantis there existed a great and estimable kingdom, which had acquired dominion of the entire island, as well as of the other island part of the continent itself." 55. The priest told Solon that Athena had founded a great Athenian empire 9,000 years earlier, which was attacked by the Atlanteans who, not satisfied with ruling their own islands, tried to conquer the whole Mediterranean. They established their rule over Egypt and Tuscany but were defeated by the Athenians. Then a great earthquake and flood devastated Athens, drowning the Athenian army, and causing Atlantis to sink below the Atlantic Ocean.